It's not very often that we see a team have the number one overall pick in back-to-back seasons, but ultimately here we are with the Jacksonville Jaguars. After taking Trevor Lawrence number one overall last year in the NFL draft, the Jaguars are picking again number one overall in the 2022 NFL draft. So in this video, I want to discuss what picks they could possibly make, what free agents they could possibly make, and what I think about the coaching hire. And obviously, they hired Doug Peterson, which has been a little bit memed just because, how things ended in Philadelphia. But overall, I don't think anybody really hates the decision of hiring Doug Peterson. I think, a Super Bowl winning coach is definitely a valuable asset to a franchise, especially to a young quarterback. And Doug Peterson, let's not forget, his first few seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, he had the rookie Carson Wentz, and they worked together to get to that, that Super Bowl. And ultimately, Carson Wentz wasn't there for that Super Bowl run. He wasn't there in the playoffs. But let's not forget that Carson Wentz in that season, that same Super Bowl season before he had that injury, he was an MVP candidate, right? I ultimately, at the end, he wasn't, but he was playing with MVP numbers leading up to his injury. So let's not forget that it's a very, impressive resume that Doug Peterson is bringing with him to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So overall, I think it's a really good coaching hire, whether it's, just to help, build a staff or help Trevor Lawrence going in the right direction. I think it's a much better coaching decision than Urban Meyer was last year. So Jacksonville Jaguars, I give you credit. I think it's a good coaching hire despite all the people making fun of it. And again, I don't think anyone's really hates the decision. It's more just the way things ended with Doug Peterson. It's become like a little bit of a meme. And then obviously they have the number one overall pick. And for the last 5 months, it's been Kayvon Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson as the number one and number two overall picks in everybody's mock draft. I don't think it's a secret that it seems like they are the two best players in the draft, regardless of position, regardless of valuability or anything like that. It seems like they're the two of the best NFL-ready players right now. But over the last week or so, we've really seen the Jaguars mock drafts or mock drafts in general, just having the Jaguars taking a tackle at number one overall, right? There's so many tackles. There's probably 3 that will be taken in the top 10, at least the top 15, with Charles Cross, Ekem, and Evan Neal from Alabama. So definitely a lot of great tackles, and a lot of people are saying the Jacksonville Jaguars will take one, and I think that's the smartest decision for them. And whether they decide to actually stay at the number one overall pick and take a tackle or trade down to maybe the middle of the top 10 or the end of the top 10 to grab one of those tackles to help build that offensive line, which was putrid for the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. So I think that's definitely the right decision and the decision that the Jaguars will ultimately decide to take. For later on in the draft, I think some things they're going to have to look for. They got to build their wide receivers up, right? You need more weapons, and despite the Jaguars actually having DJ Chark, I think people are forgetting a lot about him just because, he suffered that injury in September that was a season-ending injury. We weren't able to see him. I think he's a very good wide receiver. He had a lot of hype coming into this season, but ultimately he just, that injury really held him back, and now he's kind of fallen off people's radars. But ultimately, he's still a really young wide receiver who I think is going to continue to improve, really be a valuable asset, and a really big weapon for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, as soon as DJ Chark was gone, Trevor Lawrence's numbers took a huge hit for about a month before he started building it back up, maybe even 2 months, to be honest. And then Marvin Jones, despite having a really good season, I think it really hurt him. Or not really hurt him. I think, just by having a really good season, it wasn't expected for him to be as good as he is. I don't know how much longer he could keep up the level of play that he did this season. And then their other wide receiver that came out of nowhere, besides Laviska Shenault, who had another good season, I would say. It's not a great season, right? It's a good season for him. But then Laquan Treadwell, right? That is a name that I don't think most people didn't think they'd hear again in the NFL after what, has his career trajectory has been. I mean, drafted in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings a few years ago, and he's bounced around teams. I think he was on the Browns at one point. I think he was on the Washington football team at one point. There's been so many teams that he's been on, and he just never seemed like he got his footing, and I really thought he was done in the NFL. I'm not going to lie. And then this season he comes to the Jaguars, and he looked really good, right? Like, I know it wasn't, like a Justin Jefferson season or a Jamar Chase season, right? He didn't have a phenomenal season, but he looked like a quality NFL receiver, and that's huge for the Jaguars. That's a huge find for them, right? If he could continue to build on that, continue to improve, that's another good wide receiver they could have. But this wide receiver class in the draft is just amazing, right? There's so many wide receivers. Maybe one of the deepest wide receiver drafts we had in a while, which is crazy because if you actually think about it, last year, we were saying the same thing. It was another deep wide receiver class, and the year before that even was another deep wide receiver class. So the wide receivers are just crazy right now, and I think the Jaguars definitely need to build that offense up to help their young quarterback. So I could definitely see them taking a wide receiver later on in the rounds. But that's the two biggest things, right? It seems like so quick, right? That's all they need to do. But the offensive line, there's 5 positions. I think the Jaguars probably need to improve all 5. Left tackle, right tackle, guard, everything basically needs to be rebuilt after that performance they did last season. But adding key pieces is going to be huge. I think taking that tackle in the first round and probably a wide receiver in the second round. You could maybe go offensive line in the second round, depending on who's there again. I don't think there's going to be that many left, though. So I definitely opt for wide receiver. But if there's one of them that slips in the draft, obviously the Jaguars are going to be picking early in the draft, and the second round is basically a late first round pick. If one of them slips, you definitely, I think they would take him. But even in the third round, I think there's still going to be quality receivers left for the Jaguars. So definitely an exciting time to be a Jaguars fan, I would say. Much more exciting than the last 2 years have been. And hopefully the Jaguars can build a foundation. You never want to see fans go through what Jaguars fans have gone through. Let me know what you guys think the Jaguars need to change ultimately to find success next year. And start building that foundation for the future. If you guys agree with me, if you disagree with me, let me in the comments below. If you guys enjoy the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel so much. And guys, enjoy the Super Bowl.